The wedding feast ended with a silence so sharp it felt like a blade laid across the table. At midnight, the new Duchess of Ravenscar was escorted to her husband's chamber. Not by smiling ladies, not by giggling maids, not by friends carrying flowers and ribbons. She was escorted by the housekeeper, a footman with lowered eyes, and a storm that battered the windows as if warning her to run. Her name was Elowen Hartley. By sunset, she had become Elowen Wycliffe, Duchess of Ravenscar. By midnight, she understood the truth. Her husband had married her for duty, and he despised the duty. The bedchamber was immense, cold, and beautiful in the cruel way old houses often are. Tall windows looked over black cliffs and a silver line of sea. A fire burned low in the hearth. Heavy blue curtains hung like mourning cloth around the great carved bed. Elowen stood in the centre of the room, wearing her wedding gown, her hands folded tightly before her. She was 23, with dark auburn hair pinned beneath a pearl comb, a composed face, and eyes that had learned to hide fear behind intelligence. She had not married for love. Girls with ruined farms and collapsing estates rarely had that luxury, but she had hoped for kindness. A small hope, a foolish one perhaps. The door opened behind her. Her husband entered. Duke Thaddeus Wycliffe was 36, tall, severe, and dressed entirely in black. He carried no softness with him. His face was handsome in a haunted way, with dark eyes that seemed always to be looking past the present and into some private grave. The servants called him the Raven Duke. Society called him tragic. His enemies called him cursed. Elowen had heard all the stories before marrying him. His first love had vanished 6 years ago. A beautiful singer named Sabina Merrow. Some said she had drowned. Some said she had run away. Some said the Duke himself had driven her to death. No one said these things when he could hear them, but everyone said them. Thaddeus closed the door. The sound echoed. Elowen turned. "My lord." He looked at her as though she were an unexpected guest in his room, not the woman he had married that morning. "You need not call me that in private." "What should I call you?" His mouth tightened slightly. "Nothing, if possible." The words struck quietly. That made them worse. Elowen kept her chin lifted. "As you wish." His gaze moved over her wedding dress, then away with visible discomfort. "You will have your own apartments prepared by morning." She blinked. "My own apartments?" "Yes, this is our wedding night." "I am aware." "Then perhaps you should explain to me." He removed his gloves slowly. "This marriage exists to satisfy my uncle's will, silence your father's creditors, and prevent my estate from passing into the hands of men who would carve it apart. It need not become more intimate than law requires." Elowen's cheeks warmed, but she refused to look wounded. "I see." "No," he said, "you do not." She stepped closer, anger rising through her fear. "Then enlighten me, your grace." "I have been paraded through a chapel, examined by strangers, whispered about by women who pity me, and delivered to your chamber like a sealed bargain. If I am to be dismissed before dawn, I would prefer to understand the terms of my humiliation." For the first time he looked directly at her. Something flickered in his expression. Surprise, perhaps even respect. Then it vanished. "You will have my name, my protection, my fortune, and every comfort due to your rank. But not your trust. No, not your friendship. No, and certainly not your heart." His face changed. Barely, but enough. Elowen knew she had touched the wound. Thaddeus crossed to the fire. "My heart is buried." "Then why marry at all?" "Because the dead do not manage to states." A bitter answer. A true one. Elowen studied him. He was not merely cold. He was exhausted by feeling and determined never to do it again. That did not comfort her, but it explained the cruelty. "I did not kill your beloved," she said softly. He went still. The fire cracked. Slowly he turned. Do not speak of her. You are punishing me for being alive in a room where she is not. His eyes darkened. I said, do not speak of her. Elowen's voice trembled, but she did not retreat. Then not make me sleep beside her ghost. The room froze. For a moment she thought he might shout. Instead he laughed once, a low, humourless sound. You have courage. I have no choice. Everyone has a choice. That is something only powerful people say. The silence after that was different. He looked at her not like a bride, not like a burden, but like a person he had underestimated. Then a knock sounded. Thaddeus did not take his eyes off Elowen. Enter. The housekeeper opened the door. Mrs. Vale had a long, narrow face and eyes trained by years of service to see everything and reveal nothing. Forgive me, Your Grace. Lady Morcant has arrived. Elowen saw the Duke's jaw tighten. At this hour, she insists it is urgent. Tell her I am occupied. Mrs. Vale hesitated. She says it concerns the chapel register. That changed him. Send her to the blue drawing room. The housekeeper left. Elowen watched him. Who is Lady Morcant? My late mother's cousin. And why does she care about the chapel register? His expression closed. That is not your concern. Of course, I forgot. I am only your wife. He gave her a sharp look, then turned toward the door. Before leaving, he stopped. You will remain here until I return. Elowen gave a small, humourless smile. Am I a wife or a prisoner? That depends on whether you obey. Then he left. The door closed. Elowen stood motionless for several seconds. Then she exhaled. Her wedding day had become exactly what she feared. A transaction, a cold room, a husband who looked at her as if her presence were an insult to a dead woman. She crossed to the window and looked out over the cliffs. Below, the sea struck the rocks in white bursts. Ravenscar's castle stood at the edge of the world, and Elowen suddenly understood why people said the house swallowed women. First the Duke's mother, who had died young. Then Sabina Merrow, who had vanished. Now her. She turned from the window and noticed something on the dressing table. Boss. Small, silver, old. Its lid was carved with a nightingale. Elowen should not have touched it, but the room felt full of secrets, and she had always been too curious for her own safety. She opened the lid. A thin, delicate melody rose into the room. Elowen froze. She knew that song. Not from London, not from fashionable assemblies, not from any printed sheet of music. She knew it from childhood. From a woman who had come to her father's ruined estate when Elowen was 10 years old. A woman with gentle hands, a tired smile, and a voice like candlelight. The woman had taught Elowen one song, only one. She had said, "Never sing this where cruel people can hear it." Elowen had asked why. The woman had answered, "Because some songs are keys." Now, 12 years later, in her husband's bedchamber, the music box played the same melody. Elowen's throat tightened. Without meaning to, she began to hum. Softly at first. Then the words came back, not English. An old coastal dialect her nurse had called useless. Elowen had never understood the meaning. But she remembered every note, every rise, every ache. The door opened. Thaddeus stood there. He had returned without sound. His face was white. Elowen stopped singing. The music box continued. Thin. Beautiful. Merciless. Thaddeus stepped inside slowly. Where did you learn that? His voice was not cold now. It was shaking. Elowen closed the music box. The room fell silent. I do not what you mean. He crossed the rooms. So fast she stepped back. That song. I heard the music box. No, his eyes burned. The words. Where did you learn the words? Elowen's pulse quickened. A woman taught them to me when I was a child. What woman? I do not know. Her name. I never knew it. His expression twisted. Do not lie to me. I am not lying. He gripped the edge of the dressing table as if the floor had moved beneath him. Sabina sat song. Elowen's mouth went dry. The woman who vanished? His gaze snapped to her. "The woman I loved." The words struck with such raw force that Elowen looked away. Thaddeus continued, quieter now. "No one else knew it. She said it belonged to her mother. She sang it once to me in the old chapel, and once on the night she disappeared." A chill moved over Elowen's skin. "The woman who taught me had dark hair," she said slowly. "A scar on her wrist. She carried a blue shawl." Thaddeus stopped breathing. Elowen saw the answer before he spoke. Sabina. The woman who had taught her the song was Sabina Merrow. Alive. At least alive 12 years ago. But that made no sense. Sabina had vanished 6 years ago, not 12, unless the story was wrong. Unless everything was wrong. Thaddeus came closer. "When did you meet her?" "I was 10. "Where?" "At Hartley Manor." "Why was she there?" My father had taken in travellers sometimes. Musicians, tutors, distant relations. I was never told who she was. She stayed 3 days. "What did she say to you?" Elowen stirred memory. She said, "If I ever reach the house by the sea, I must remember the song." Thaddeus went rigid. "The house by the sea?" "Yes." He turned toward the window. Ravenscar Castle stood above the sea. Elowen whispered, "She meant here." The door opened behind them. Lady Morcant entered without knocking. She was in her late 50s, elegant and silver-haired, with sharp cheekbones and a morning gown too fine to be modest. Her eyes moved from Thaddeus to Elowen to the music box. She smiled. "My dear nephew," she said, "should I return at a less intimate moment?" Thaddeus did not move. "What do you want?" Lady Morcant lifted a folded paper. "The chapel register from this morning. There is an irregularity." Elowen stiffened. The Duke held out his hand. Lady Morcant gave it to him. He unfolded it. His expression darkened. Elowen stepped closer. "What is it?" Thaddeus looked at her. Then at Lady Morcant. The older woman's smile sharpened. "It seems," Lady Morcant said softly, "your marriage may not be legal." Elowen felt the room tilt. Thaddeus lowered the paper. Lady Morcant continued. "The witness signature is false. The licence was altered. And if that is proven, your new bride is not Duchess of Ravenscar at all." Elowen stared at her. "Why would anyone do that?" Lady Morcant's eyes glittered. "Perhaps, my dear, because someone never wanted you to become his wife." Thaddeus said nothing. But Elowen saw his face. He already knew. The trap had not been set for him. It had been set for her. And somewhere behind the false marriage, the forbidden song, and the woman who had vanished, Sabina Merrow's ghost had begun to move. By dawn, the castle knew the Duke had rejected his bride. By breakfast, the castle knew the marriage might be invalid. By noon, the village knew. And by evening, society would know too. That was how scandal moved through noble houses. Faster than fire, cleaner than murder, and always toward the woman with the least protection. Elowen sat alone in the morning room, still wearing the previous night's wedding gown beneath a borrowed shawl. No maid had come to dress her. No breakfast had been brought. No one had dressed her as Duchess since sunrise. A woman could gain a title in a chapel and lose it in a whisper. Outside the door, servants murmured. She was never truly married. His Grace would not claim her anyway. They say she sang the dead woman's song. That is unlucky. Elowen listened without moving. She had spent most of her life in a decaying manor where servants left because wages could not be paid. Neighbours visited only to count the cracks in the walls, and creditors smiled as though poverty were a moral failure. Humiliation was not new to her. But Ravenscar had given humiliation a fine address. The door opened. Thaddeus entered. The servants outside scattered. He had changed from his wedding clothes into a dark morning coat, but his face looked as sleepless as hers. Elowen stood. "Your Grace." His expression tightened at the formality. "I have sent riders to London to verify the licence." "How kind. This is not my doing." "No?" His jaw flexed. I did not falsify the register. But you are not devastated by it. That landed. His silence was answer enough. Eloe smiled faintly, though her eyes burned. You did not want a wife. Now Providence has offered you an escape. He stepped closer. Do not mistake my confusion for cruelty. Confusion, she repeated. Last night you refused me. Then you commanded me. Then you accused me of lying. Then your aunt announced, I may not be your wife at all. Forgive me if I fail to admire the delicacy of your confusion. Thaddeus looked away. For a moment, he seemed less like a duke and more like a man standing in the ruins of a life he did not understand. I heard Sabina's song from your mouth, he said. Eloan's anger softened despite herself. I know. You asked me not to make you sleep beside her ghost. Yes. And now you have become the person who may bring that ghost back. She folded her arms around herself. I did not ask for this. No, he said quietly. Neither did I. That truth stood between them, not peace, but something less sharp than war. Eloan sat slowly. The woman who taught me the song came to Hartley Manor 12 years ago. I remember because my mother died the month before. I had stopped speaking much. My father thought music might cure grief. Did it? No, but she did not try to cure me. She sat beside me in silence. That helped more. Thaddeus looked at her. It was the first time he seemed to see the child she had been. Lonely, motherless, listening to a stranger sing. What else do you remember? Eloan closed her eyes. Her hands were cold. Her wrist was scarred. She had a small silver comb shaped like a bird. She told me she once lived near the sea, but the sea had taken too much from her. Thaddeus gripped the back of a chair. The comb was hers. You are certain. I gave it to her. Eloan opened her eyes. Then she was alive 12 years ago. His face darkened with thought. But Sabina came to Ravenscar 8 years ago. Eloan frowned. Then how could she have been at Hartley before that? That is the question. A knock came at the door. Mrs. Vale entered, pale and anxious. Your Grace, forgive me. Lady Morcant requests your presence in the library. Sir Orren Bell has arrived. Thaddeus's eyes sharpened. Eloan noticed. Who is Sir Orren Bell? My solicitor. Mrs. Vale's gaze flicked to Eloan, then away. Lady Morcant has already shown him the register. Thaddeus cursed under his breath. Eloan stood. I am coming. No. Yes. This concerns legal matters. It concerns whether I am your wife. His face tightened. She stepped closer. You may reject me privately, Your Grace, but you will not erase me publicly while I sit behind closed doors like a shameful mistake. For a moment, she thought he would argue. Instead, he inclined his head. Very well, the library smelled of leather, wax, and old male authority. Lady Morcant stood near the fireplace, elegant as a judge who had already chosen the sentence. Beside her was Sir Orren Bell, a thin, nervous man with round spectacles and papers clutched in both hands. A third person stood by the window. Eloan had not seen him before. He was young, perhaps 28, with fair hair, a polished smile, and eyes that lingered too long. Lady Morcant introduced him. My son, Mr. Lucien Morcant. Newly returned from Italy. Lucien bowed. To meet the bride on such dramatic terms is a privilege. Thaddeus's voice was cold. Do not flirt with my wife. Eloan glanced at him. My wife. The words had come quickly. Too quickly for a man eager to be rid of her. Lady Morcant heard it too. Her expression chilled. Perhaps we should establish whether that title applies. Sir Orren cleared his throat. The irregularity is serious, Your Grace. The special license bears a correction mark over the bride's surname. The second witness appears not to exist. If challenged, the marriage could be suspended pending inquiry. Who prepared the license? Thaddeus asked. Sir Orren hesitated. My clerk received it through Lady Morcant's messenger. Thaddeus turned slowly toward his aunt. She smiled. I assisted because you were reluctant to organise your own wedding. You altered the document. I did no such thing. Lucienne spoke lightly. Mother has many sins. Poor penmanship is not one of them. No one smiled. Elowen looked at the tapers. May I see it? Sir Oren glanced at Thaddeus. The Duke nodded. Elowen took the license. The writing was formal, dense, legal. At first she saw nothing. Then her eyes stopped on the correction. Hartley, her name. Beneath the ink, faint but visible, was another name. Not fully erased, not hers. She held the paper closer. What was written here before my name? Sir Oren adjusted his spectacles. It is difficult to say. Elowen looked up. He swallowed. It appears to begin with Mare. Thaddeus went still. Elowen whispered. Merrow, silence. Lady Morton's face hardened. Coincidence. Thaddeus took the paper. His eyes moved over the faint letters. Merrow. Sabina's surname. For one impossible second, it seemed as if his lost love had been written into his marriage. Elowen felt cold. Why would Sabina Merrow's name be beneath mine? Lady Morcant snapped. Because old documents are reused, careless clerks are common, and frightened girls see ghosts when it suits them. Elowen turned to her. I am not frightened. Lucienne smiled. A pity. Fear can be charming. Thaddeus looked at him. Another word and you leave my house. Lucienne's smile faded. Sir Oren quickly spoke. There is more, Your Grace. Thaddeus did not look away from Lucienne. What? The chapel register itself was not merely altered. A page was removed. Lady Morcant's eyes flashed. Elowen saw it. So did Thaddeus. What page? He asked. Sir Oren opened a small ledger. The entries from 6 years ago. The week Miss Sabina Merrow disappeared. The library went silent. Even the fire seemed to lower. Thaddeus's voice became dangerous. There was no wedding that week. Sir Oren swallowed. I did not say there was. No, Elowen said softly. But someone wanted to hide something recorded in the chapel. Thaddeus turned to Mrs. Vale, who had remained near the door. Who had access to the chapel register? The housekeeper's face was pale. Only the family, Your Grace, the vicar, and the old chapel keeper. What old chapel keeper? Mrs. Vale hesitated. Lady Morcant spoke sharply. She is dead. Thaddeus looked at his aunt. I ask Mrs. Vale. The housekeeper lowered her voice. Mrs. Brindle kept the chapel for 30 years. She died the winter after Miss Merrow vanished. How? Mrs. Vale's hands twisted. She fell down the crypt stairs. Elowen felt the room turn colder. How many women fall in this house? She asked. Lady Morcant's eyes narrowed. You are bold for a bride whose marriage may evaporate by supper. Elowen looked back calmly. And you are nervous for a woman claiming coincidence. Lucienne laughed softly, this time with genuine amusement. Lady Morcant's face tightened. Thaddeus folded the license. We are going to the chapel. His aunt stepped forward. That is unnecessary. Then you will not mind. The chapel of Ravenscar Castle stood separate from the main house, connected by a covered stone passage where wind moaned through narrow arches. Elowen walked beside Thaddeus. For the first time since the wedding, he offered his arm. She looked at it, then at him. This does not mean I forgive your behaviour. I did not ask. Good. Are you always this difficult? Only when abandoned on my wedding night. His mouth twitched, a nearly smile. It vanished before becoming dangerous. But Elowen saw it. The chapel doors opened with a groan. Inside, the air smelled of salt, dust, and old prayers. Blue glass windows cast watery light over the pews. At the front, an altar of pale stone stood beneath a carved image of Saint Cecily, patroness of music. Elowen felt the melody stir in her memory. The song, the key. She moved toward the altar as if pulled. What? Thaddeus noticed. What is it? I do not know. She stood beneath Saint Cecily. The saint's stone hands held a small carved harp. One string was broken. Elowen reached up and touched it. Nothing happened. She frowned. Then softly she sang the first line of Sabina's song. the chapel answered. Not loudly, not magically, but through stone. A faint click sounded beneath the altar. Thaddeus stared. Elowen stopped singing. The altar base shifted open. Sir Oran gasped. Mrs. Vale crossed herself. Lady Morcant went deathly pale. Hidden beneath the altar was a narrow compartment. Inside lay a wrapped bundle tied with blue ribbon. Thaddeus dropped to one knee and pulled it out. His hands shook as he untied it. A book, a small chapel record, the missing page, and a letter addressed in handwriting he knew. Sabina's handwriting. He opened it. My dearest Thaddeus, if you are reading this, then I failed to return before they silenced me. Forgive me. I was never merely Sabina Merrow. I was sent to Ravenscar to discover why your mother died. What I found was worse. Your aunt has hidden marriages, stolen inheritances, and buried names beneath chapel stone. The song opens what locks cannot. If I vanish, trust the woman who sings it after me. She was chosen long before she knew it. Thaddeus looked up slowly. His eyes found Elowen. Trust the woman who sings it after me. Elowen could not breathe. Lady Morcant stepped backward. Thaddeus rose. Aunt. Before he could say more, Lucien moved. Fast, he seized Elowen from behind and pressed a small blade near her side. Everyone froze. Thaddeus's face went white with fury. Lucian's smile was gone. Give mother book, Elowen's heart hammered. Lady Morcant closed her eyes briefly. Not in horror, in relief. Thaddeus's voice became lethal. Release her. Lucian tightened his grip. I think not. Elowen looked at Thaddeus. For the first time, the Duke looked truly afraid. Not for a ghost, not for a memory, for her. Lady Morcant lifted her chin. You should have let the marriage die quietly, Thaddeus. The Duke's eyes never left Elowen. What have you done? His aunt smiled sadly. What women in this family have always done. Then she answered. I protected Ravenscar from the wrong bride. Elowen had never been held at knife point in a chapel before. Later, she would think that was a strange first thought. Not fear, not prayer. Just a sharp, ridiculous awareness that her wedding had become worse with each passing hour. Lucian's arm pressed hard across her waist. The small blade at her side did not cut, but its warning was clear. One wrong movement would turn threat into blood. Thaddeus stood 3 paces away, holding Sabina's hidden book in one hand and the missing chapel record in the other. His face was terrifyingly calm. Elowen knew enough now to fear that calm. So did Lady Morcant. Do not be foolish, she said to him. Give me the papers, and your bride will not be harmed. My bride, Thaddeus repeated quietly. Lady Morcant's mouth tightened. Yes. How touching that you have finally remembered she is yours. She was never mine. Elowen's heart twisted. Then he continued. She is her own, which is why you fear her. For one fragile second, Elowen forgot the blade. Lady Morcant laughed softly. You sound noble. Men always do when they are about to lose. Thaddeus took one step forward. Lucienne shifted the knife. Elowen forced herself not to flinch. The Duke stopped. Tell me what Sabina discovered. Lady Morcant's eyes cooled. Why? So you may imagine yourself the hero of a tragedy? So I may know how many graves belong to you, Mrs. Vale gasped. Sir Oran stood frozen near the pews, clutching his legal papers like a shield. Lady Morcant looked toward the saint's statue, its broken harp string casting a thin shadow over the altar. Ravenscar was dying long before you inherited it, she said. Your father gambled. Your mother concealed debts. Your uncle signed away lands he did not own. This family would have been ruined if I had not intervened. Intervened, Thaddeus said. Yes, I arranged marriages, redirected inheritances, corrected documents, prevented unsuitable women from destroying the bloodline. Elowen's voice was tight. By erasing them, Lady Morcant looked at her. By removing complications, the word chilled the chapel. Complications, not women, not wives, not mothers. Complications. Thaddeus's voice dropped. Was my mother a complication? His aunt's expression flickered. At last, emotion, not guilt. Irritation. Your mother became sentimental. She discovered your father's first marriage. Thaddeus went still. My father's what? Lady Morcant smiled faintly. Ah, Sabina did not get that far in her little confession. Thaddeus looked at the chapel book. Elowen felt Lucian's grip tighten. Lady Morcant continued. Your father married before your mother. A quiet ceremony, a poor relation of no consequence. When she died, the record should have remained buried. But your mother found it and began asking whether first wife had left a child. Sir Oran whispered, Good God! Thaddeus's face had gone pale. Did she? Lady Morcant's gaze moved to Elowen. The answer struck before she spoke. Elowen felt the chapel tilt. No, she whispered. Lady Morcant's smile sharpened. Oh, my dear, did you think your arrival here was chance? Thaddeus looked from his aunt to Elowen. Elowen is your father's granddaughter, Lady Morcant said, through his first marriage. Not close enough to take your title, perhaps, but close enough to revive old claims, old scandals, old questions. Her blood touches Ravenscar. That is why the will demanded you marry a Hartley girl. Your uncle discovered the truth and tried to repair what had been hidden. Elowen could barely breathe. Her ruined family, her father's debts, the sudden marriage proposal, the strange speed of the arrangements, none of it had been random. She had not been chosen because she was convenient. She had been chosen because the dead had left a trail through her blood. Thaddeus looked shaken, but not disgusted. That mattered. More than she wanted it to. Lady Morcant turned colder. If the marriage as stood, Elowen's existence would strengthen your claim and expose mine. If the marriage failed, she could be dismissed as an unfortunate bride from a desperate family. Either way, I would control the story. Thaddeus's eyes darkened. You forged the license. I created uncertainty. You planned to ruin her. I planned to prevent her from opening doors better left sealed. Elowen looked at the bundle in Thaddeus's hand. The song opens what locks cannot. Sabina had taught her the song. Why? Because even as a child, Elowen had already been part of the truth. Lucien shifted behind her. Mother, enough talking. The papers. Thaddeus looked at him. You would kill her for this? Lucian's face hardened, but something like shame passed through his eyes. I would do what my mother asks. Then you are weaker than I thought. Lucien's jaw clenched. That was the first crack. Elowen felt it. Lucien was not like his mother. Not entirely. His hand trembled. His breathing was fast. He was frightened of the very violence he threatened. Elowen lowered her voice. Mr. Morcant, do not speak. You do not want to hurt me, I said. Silence. If you wanted to kill me, the knife would already be deeper. His grip faltered. Lady Morcant snapped. Lucien, Elowen kept going. She has made you her weapon because she is too cowardly to hold the blade herself. Lucian's breath hitched. Lady Morcant's face twisted. Cut her. Thaddeus moved instantly, so did Elowen. She drove her heel down hard onto Lucian's foot and threw her weight sideways. The knife grazed fabric but missed flesh. Lucien cried out and stumbled. Thaddeus crossed the distance between them in a blur. He seized Lucien by the wrist and struck the knife from his hand. It clattered across the chapel floor. Elowen fell against the altar. Mrs. Vale rushed to her. Thaddeus shoved Lucien into a pew hard enough to crack the wood. Lady Morcant turned to flee. Sir Oran, of all people, stepped into her path. The thin solicitor stood trembling but firm. No, my lady. She stared at him in disbelief. You? He swallowed. Yes, apparently. Thaddeus turned, breathing hard. The chapel doors opened. 2 footmen entered, drawn by the noise. The Duke pointed to Lady Morcant and Lucien. Hold them. Lady Morcant lifted her chin. "No servant in this house will dare touch me, Mrs." Vale stepped forward. Her face was pale, but her voice was steady. "I will." The housekeeper took Lady Morcant by the arm. For the first time, the older woman looked afraid, not because of force, because the hierarchy she had used all her life had failed her. A servant had chosen justice over obedience. Lucian sank onto a pew, covering his face. "I am sorry," he whispered. Lady Morcant looked at him with disgust. "Do not be pathetic." Thaddeus went to Elowen. The anger left his face the moment he saw her. "Are you hurt?" "No." "Are you certain?" "The gown is wounded." "I shall survive." A breath escaped him, almost laughter, almost relief. Then his eyes lowered to the torn fabric near her side. His face hardened again. "I should have protected you. You did. Too late." She looked at him. "Perhaps. But you came." That silenced him. For a man who had spent years devoted to a woman he could not save, the words struck deeply. "You came." Elowen saw it, and for the first time she understood that his coldness had not been pride. It had been punishment. He had built a prison out of grief and locked himself inside. Sabina's hidden book was taken to the library under guard. Lady Morcant and Lucian were placed under watch until the magistrate could arrive. Sir Oran sent urgent letters to London. Mrs. Vale personally locked the chapel register in an iron safe. And Elowen, who had entered Ravenscar as an unwanted bride, was escorted to the blue drawing room by the Duke himself. No one dared whisper now. The room was warm with afternoon light when Thaddeus placed Sabina's letter on the table between them. Neither touched it. For a long time, neither spoke. Then Elowen said, "Tell me about her." Thaddeus closed his eyes briefly. "You do not have to ask that. I want to." He looked at her as though he did not understand. "Why?" "Because she saved me before I knew I was in danger. Because she loved you. Because you have been speaking to her ghost through your silence since our wedding began." He sat slowly. "She was unlike anyone I had known. Not because she was beautiful, though she was. Not because she could sing, though everyone stopped breathing when she did. She was brave in a way that made cowardice impossible around her." Elowen listened, not as a rival, not as a wife jealous of the dead, as a woman honouring another woman whose courage had crossed years to reach her. "She came here under a false reason," Thaddeus continued. "She said she was cataloguing old music. I believed her because I wanted to. By the time I understood she was searching for something, I was already in love with her." "What happened the night she disappeared?" His jaw tightened. "She asked me to meet her in the chapel. She said she had found proof that would change everything. I waited. She never came. By dawn, her shawl was found near the cliffs. And you believed she drowned. I believed what grief allowed me to believe." Elowen touched the blue ribbon around the hidden book. "She may not have died that night." He looked up sharply. "What? If Lemorcant's pattern is erasing women, not always killing them, then Sabina may have been taken, hidden, forced away." Hope entered his face. It was painful to watch. Elowen almost wished she had not said it. Hope can be crueler than grief when it arrives without proof. Thaddeus looked toward the window. "If she lives," he could not finish. Elowen completed the thought silently. "If Sabina lives, what am I? The unwanted bride, the uncertain wife, the woman who carried the song but not the first love." Thaddeus turned back to her. "I will not ask you to live in her shadow." "You already did." He accepted the blow. Yes, the honesty softened her more than denial would have. He stood and walked to the fire. "When I refused to touch you last night, I thought I was sparing us both. From what? From a false tenderness. From duty pretending to be desire. From making you another victim of this house." Elowen's voice was quiet. "You did not spare me pain. You merely chose its shape." He looked wounded. "Good," she thought. Let him feel one clean wound instead of hiding behind old ones. Then she surprised herself by adding, "But I understand more now than I did last night." He turned. "Do you?" "Yes. Understanding is not forgiveness. No, but it is a beginning." Their eyes held. Something fragile moved between them. Not love, not yet, but the possibility of trust. That evening they opened the book. Inside were records spanning 30 years, hidden marriages, altered inheritances, names of women put to vanish. Children relocated under false guardianship. Lady Morcant had not merely protected family power, she had rewritten lives. Near the final pages, Sabina had written notes in the margins. One line made Elowen stop. "The Hartley child knows the song. If I fail, she may one day open what I could not." Elowen stared. The Hartley child. Thaddeus read it too. "She chose you. She barely knew me. She knew enough." Elowen swallowed. A childhood memory returned. Sabina kneeling before her at Hartley Manor, tying a blue ribbon around Elowen's wrist. "Songs remember what people bury," she had said. Elowen had thought it pretty nonsense. Now it felt like prophecy. At the bottom of the page was one final note. "If Ravenscar wakes, search the old tide chapel below the cliffs. I left one truth where only the sea can hear it." Thaddeus stood at once. Elowen stood too. "No." He looked at her. "You are not going without me. It may be dangerous. I have noticed Ravenscar rarely offers safe alternatives." His mouth twitched. "You are impossible. I believe the word you are looking for is useful." They left at dawn. The tide chapel lay below the cliffs, half carved into rock, abandoned after a storm broke its roof generations before. Reaching it required a narrow path slick with sea spray. Thaddeus insisted on walking ahead. Elowen allowed it only because, if he fell first, she would have time to object loudly. At the bottom, the ruined chapel opened toward the sea. Water hissed over stones, gulls screamed overhead. Inside, salt had eaten the walls, but one carving remained, a nightingale above a stone basin. Elowen's heart quickened. "The music box!" Thaddeus nodded. She stood before the basin. There was no keyhole, no drawer, no inscription, only the nightingale. Elowen knew what to do. She sang. The song sounded different here. Not delicate as it had in the bedchamber, not holy as it had in the chapel. Here, with the sea behind it, the song sounded like a farewell. On the final note, the stone basin shifted. Inside was a sealed glass cylinder. Thaddeus removed it carefully. Within was a letter, dry, preserved, addressed to him. His hands trembled as he opened it. "My dearest Thaddeus, if you find this, then I have either escaped or died trying. Do not let grief make you cruel." That would be Lady Morcant's final victory. The woman who sings the song is not your enemy. She carries the blood they tried to hide and the courage Ravenscar needs. If I live, I will find my way back. If I do not, choose the living without betraying the dead. Thaddeus lowered the letter. The sea roared behind them. Elowen could not speak. Choose the living without betraying the dead. Sabina had written the words for him, but they pierced her too. Thaddeus looked out toward the horizon. She knew me. Yes, she knew what I would become. She hoped you would become something else. He looked at Elowen then. The morning light touched his face, revealing all the grief he had tried to make noble and all the fear beneath it. "I do not know how to be a husband to you." Elowen gave a small, sad smile. That was very clear. He almost laughed, but it broke into something softer. "I can learn." She looked at him carefully. "Do you want to?" "Yes." The answer came without hesitation. Elowen's heart betrayed her with one hard beat, and if Sabina lives, his face changed. Pain, hope, honesty. If she lives, then I owe her truth, gratitude, protection, if she needs it. But I cannot pretend the years did not pass. I cannot unknow you. Elowen looked down. "That is not a vow." "No," he said. It is the first honest thing I can offer, and strangely, it mattered more than a grand declaration. When they returned to Ravenscar's, the magistrate had arrived. Lady Morcant tried to deny everything until Sir Oran produced the hidden book, the chapel records, and Sabina's letters. Lucien confessed enough to condemn them both, though he insisted his mother had arranged the worst of it before he understood the cost. Lady Morcant did not weep. She looked at Elowen with cold hatred. "You think you have won?" Elowen stood beside Thaddeus in the great hall. "No. Then what do you think?" "I think the women you erased have begun speaking." Lady Morcant's mouth tightened. "And what will they say of you, little bride? That you were loved second, a cruel blow, accurate enough to wound." Thaddeus stepped forward, but Elowen lifted a hand. She answered for herself. "They will say I was not afraid to enter a house full of ghosts and open the windows." For the first time, Lady Morcant had no reply. She was taken away before sunset. The next week, the marriage license was verified. The alteration had been deliberate but incomplete. The original legal seal remained valid. The witnesses were found, bribed into silence but willing to confess once Lady Morcant fell. Elowen was Duchess of Ravenscar. Truly, legally, publicly. Yet the title mattered less than she expected. What mattered was the way servants now opened doors without pity. The way Mrs. Vale began asking her opinion on household matters. The way Sir Oran bowed with genuine respect. And Thaddeus? He did not suddenly become warm. Men like him did not thaw in one chapter, but he changed. He no longer avoided rooms where Elowen sat. He no longer spoke to her as if every word were a negotiation. He brought her the music box one evening and placed it in her hands. "I thought you might want it." She opened the lid. The melody rose softly. This time it did not feel like a ghost entering the room. It felt like a bridge. Elowen looked up. "Will it hurt you to hear it?" "Yes." "Do you want me to stop?" "No." So she sang, quietly. Not to summon the past, not to compete with Sabina, but to honour the woman who had given her the key. Thaddeus sat across from her, eyes closed, and listened. When the song ended, he said nothing for a long time. Then he whispered, "Thank you." Months passed. No news came of Sabina, no body, no confirmed death, no certain life. Only the letter beneath the tied chapel, and the truth that she had fought to leave behind. Ravenscar changed slowly. Elowen reopened the chapel. She restored the records. She created a fund for women whose names had been buried in Lady Morcant's book. Thaddeus supported every decision, sometimes with money, sometimes with influence, sometimes simply by standing beside her when society tried to reduce justice to gossip. One autumn evening, Ellen stood on the terrace overlooking the sea. Thaddeus joined her. For a while they watched the tide in silence. Then he said, "I owe you more than apology. You have already apologized." "Not enough." "No," she agreed, "but often that earned a real smile. A rare one." It changed his face so completely that Elowen had to look away. He noticed. "Elowen." She turned back. He seemed uncertain, which was new and oddly dear. "I will not ask for anything you are not ready to give." Her pulse quickened. "But I would like to begin again." She studied him. The wedding was rather poor. Disastrous. The wedding night worse. Unforgivable. The family welcoming committee attempted murder. Also regrettable. This time she laughed. The sound startled them both. Thaddeus looked at her as if he had been given something he did not deserve. Perhaps he had. Perhaps that was how healing worked, not as payment, as grace. Elowen extended her hand. "Then begin with a walk." He looked at her hand. Slowly, carefully, he took it. Not as possession, not as duty, as a promise to move at her pace. Together they walked along the terrace while the sea darkened beneath them. Behind them, Ravenscar Castle glowed with candlelight. No longer quite so haunted, no longer quite so cold. And sometimes, late at night, when wind moved through the blue curtains and the music box played its fragile melody, Slowen would sing the song Sabina had left behind. The song only the Duke's lost love had known. The song that opened stone. The song that revealed blood. The song that turned an unwanted bride into the keeper of every buried truth. And Thaddeus would listen. Not because he had forgotten Sabina, he never would, but because he had learned what grief had tried to hide from him. The heart can honour the dead and still choose the living.